On September 26, 1983, a single man made a decision.
He was not a president. He was not a general. He was not anyone you have ever heard of.
He was a mid-ranking officer in an underground room somewhere in the Soviet Union.
And that night, with no one watching, no cameras, no witnesses, he chose not to press a button.
That choice saved your life. It saved my life. It saved the lives of practically everyone you know. And the world never learned his name. To understand what happened that night, you need to understand the world of 1983. The Cold War was at its most dangerous moment in decades. The United States and the Soviet Union had enough nuclear warheads to destroy the Earth several times over. And both sides knew it. Row of Soviet nuclear warheads in a military warehouse, 1983. In September of that year, tensions had reached a breaking point.
3 weeks before this story, the Soviet Union had shot down a South Korean civilian aircraft that had crossed into its airspace by mistake. 269 people dead. The world was on fire. The Americans were furious and the Soviets on the defensive. And in a climate like that, any spark could mean the end. It was exactly in that climate that Stanislav Petrov went to work that night. Stanislav Yevgrafovich Petrov was 44 years old. He was not a hero. He did not want to be a hero. He was a systems engineer, a specialist in early warning satellites, the satellites the Soviet Union used to detect American missile launches. That night he was on duty at Bunker Serpukov 15, the Soviet Nuclear Early Warning Command Center, located 100 kilometers south of Moscow. His job was simple: monitor the screens. If an alarm went off, confirm or dismiss it. And if it was real, report immediately up the chain of command. The protocol was clear. What happened after that was not his problem. At 00:15 in the morning, the alarm went off. Sirens filled the bunker. On the screen in front of him, a single word flashed. The satellite system had detected an intercontinental ballistic missile leaving American territory, heading toward the Soviet Union. Petrov stared at the screen, took a deep breath, and did not move. Then the alarm sounded again. Another missile detected. Then another. Within minutes, the system was indicating 5 American nuclear missiles on a collision course with Soviet territory. The red lights were flashing. The crew around him panicked. Everyone was looking at him, waiting for the order, waiting for him to pick up the phone and report to command. The protocol said, report immediately. If he reported, the Soviet generals would have less than 10 minutes to decide on a counterstrike. 10 minutes to start or not start World War III. Petrov did not pick up the phone. Instead, he thought quickly. With everything he knew, first, 5 missiles doesn't make sense. If the Americans were going to attack, they would not launch 5. They would launch hundreds. Second, the system was new. It had only recently been deployed. And new systems fail. Third, the ground-based backup radars were confirming nothing. Not a single missile had been detected by the secondary systems. With all of that running through his mind in a noisy room, with sirens blaring, with subordinates shouting, Stanislav Petrov made his decision. He classified the alert as a false alarm and logged it system malfunction. Close-up of handwriting in military logbook. He was right. The system had failed. A rare alignment between Soviet satellites and sunlight reflecting off clouds had created a signal the computer interpreted as a missile launch. There were no missiles. There never had been. But here is what they never tell you. Petrov was not welcomed as a hero. On the contrary, he was reprimanded for not filling out the duty logbook correctly during the incident. He was transferred to a lesser position. He suffered a nervous breakdown months later. He retired early with no recognition, no medal, no ceremony. For decades, the story was kept secret by the Soviet Union. The world only found out in the 1990s when documents were declassified. Stanislav Petrov died in 2017 in a simple apartment on the outskirts of Moscow. He was 77 years old. There is an organization called the Future of Life Institute that, in 2013, gave Petrov an award and a few $1,000s for what he did. When asked whether he considered himself a hero, he said, "I was simply in the right place at the right time." Think about that. On a September night in 1983, the fate of all humanity depended on one man who decided to think instead of obey, who chose doubt over certainty, who stood still when everyone around him expected him to move. You are alive because he hesitated. That is what they left out of the history books.